What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist here once again, being followed and joined by
Gershwan. That's what this is. I just follow him around, and then he's like, "Let's film." Okay.
Yeah. He can do two things at once. Following even in no motion.
Yes.
And anyway, we're here once again to talk to you guys about For the Greater.
This is a video series where we answer the questions left by you, the viewer. If you have a question for us, comment down below. Put a question in front of your question because we get those questions first. Also, if you like the channel, if you guys like listening to us talk about 40K and other random shit, support the channel with a super thanks. If you do, you could lead a greater WAAAGH. Your question that you put in that super thanks will be part of the next thumbnail question. And that is what Oscar Iglesias has done, kind of. They should rewrite squats. They have some very cool ideas, but we have lost the squat feeling that they are space dwarves. So this is kind of a response into what we said last week of like what faction in 40K or what about 40K needs a rewrite. Mm-hmm. And he's saying squats. And I kind of agree.
Yeah, so basically, if you don't know, the squats came back as the Leagues of Votann. They are spacefaring, mining, STC-loving, technologically advanced squats, right. Dwarves. However, they feel less like dwarves and more like just a sci-fi race.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, the only thing right now that says, oh, this is a squat is because they're small.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you think of squats, you think of them as like tinkerers, tough. And you can kind of see that within the Leagues of Votann, but not like entirely like vengeful. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's another thing about the dwarves in fantasy. They're vengeful people, jolly, but like if you wrong them, they're gonna remember forever.
Right.
And the Leagues of Votann don't have that. And there's like a weird thing of like they're abhumans, but they're not really abhumans because they're being cloned.
Yeah, they're all clones from the original squats from Terra.
Yeah.
So time after time after time, they've acquired different types of clone skins, that's what they call them, to basically make their surroundings more easier to live by. So if they're on a world that's heavily aquatic and has a lot of pressure, they're going to be dense and have like webbed fingers. Mm-hmm. If they're in a world that requires them to be able to breathe or to be lighter, they're still going to be small and tough, but they have certain adaptations to make them thrive on these worlds.
Yeah. And when it comes to dwarves in space, I feel like the Necromunda, or I think that's Necromunda, right?
Yeah.
They kind of interpret it a little bit better as far as like they're scavengers in the ash wastes.
Mm-hmm. Whereas the Votanns, they're kind of bound to certain sectors of space, and these sectors of space all have a Vol. Vol is like their gods. Because there are these like orbs with like, weird faces, and they give the squats, the Vol, the kin, the ability to have STC technology. Mm-hmm. So anything they need, they can ask these Vols and they'll get an answer to. Anything they require information on how to build, these things are what gives them the means to ascertain and become technologically advanced enough to get their means of an end.
Yeah. And I think that it comes down to appearance as well. Like the Leagues of Votann don't look squatty enough or like dwarfy enough. Mm-hmm. So if there was more like rocks, or like, because their whole thing is like they're miners on mountains in fantasy. Mm-hmm. In 40K, like I wish they would have been more, like less what you said earlier, like sci-fi, and more
fantasy, I guess.
Well, not fantasy, but just like technological. In terms of almost like the Adeptus Mechanicus, where you see the gears, you see the like levers and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I think their difference is that you don't see the gears and the levers and all the machinations because they're so advanced through the STCs.
Right, and I think that's what like takes away from the dwarfy spacemen.
Because when you look at their lineup currently, it's a lot of what used to be from like the Rogue Trader days, just put in with this filter of current 40K.
Yeah.
So I think once we get more models, more lore for them, they'll start to be more their own race, unless just people are saying, well, I remember them as this. Why aren't they this?
Yeah. And then also that brings up a good point that a lot of people are saying, well, it's kind of like, well, that was in the past, and now we're moving to the future. And sometimes you just got to let the past go.
Yeah.
You had an idea of what this race used to be, but now you realize it's something different. Accept this something different now.
Yeah. Is it a good different, a bad different? We won't know until we get there.
It is what it is.
That's right. But I think they're pretty cool.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they're pretty cool. I'm still trying to get used to the look of them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would have been interesting to see because, yeah, they're dwarves, but at the same time, they also allied with, like, Men of Iron.
Yeah.
So I think once we see more Men of Iron, I think that's what I'm more interested in. And it'd be pretty cool to see how integrated and what different designs they have for that.
It would be the classic, like, duo of, like, the short guy and the tall guy.
Yeah.
Because, like, the Men of Iron are tall.
Mm-hmm.
Like, big robot things, and then you have these little squats. So, it'd be cool. Next question.
This guy says, Viking Macquarie. Do you think that the Aeldari is a way for GW to include the Dark Eldar as a separate faction and wrap the Eldar all together?
That's a good point.
Yeah, so the Aeldari is basically Yvrain saying, okay, we're all Eldar, we're all in this together. It doesn't matter if you're Exodites, Craft World, Dark Eldar, Harlequins, we're all going to unite for one purpose, and that purpose is to defeat Slaanesh. So I think it all started as a means for GW to say, hey, this section of Eldar isn't selling so good. Hey, this section isn't selling so good. So let's just bump it all together so that we don't have to spend time, resources on something that we know is not going to sell and just sell something that makes everybody happy. And
then what did they do? They did the stupid thing that made those factions undesirable. They don't cover them.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's GW just doing bad to their, like, players, I guess. Like, if you are into the Harlequins, but then you don't get no support for the Harlequins or the Craft World or the Dark Eldar, that's the problem. So they don't want you to, like, lump them all into one. Just cover them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, like, masking it over with this story that you're not going to cover, like,
right.
Yeah, it fell apart.
We literally had the death of one of their most favorite, best characters, Eldrad Olthan, to create a god, Inyad, and nothing happened with it. Mm-hmm. They freaking created a god.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's just like, well, that didn't do anything. Let's just talk about Primaris.
Yeah.
It's like, no, like, you got to keep it going. Like, they were fighting to collect all the Crone swords and go against Slaanesh. Why don't you continue that?
Yeah.
Like, I get it. GW doesn't want to do everything for a certain faction all at once, because then it's like, well, we talked about a whole storyline for 10 years on this one faction. Let's give everything else some limelight, but I don't think it was enough for the Eldar faction.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, I think maybe, like, Eldar are just not as popular, which means that, like, the heads, like, think of a good Eldar enthusiast in, like, let's just keep it small within the YouTube community. Who within the YouTube community is, like, the Eldar guy? No one. Like, I mean, there's Orc guys, there's Space Marine guys, there's even Tau guys, but, like, if you think of an Eldar person, it just doesn't exist.
Yeah, there's people that play Eldar, but I don't think that's, like, their whole, like, this is my favorite race. I love them to death.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think GW, like, probably saw that within the numbers, and they were like, oh, yeah, we want to keep selling these things, so we're just going to lump them all together.
Right, because at the end of the day, you don't want to just completely get rid of a faction. Even though the Eldar are a dying race, you don't just want to say, well, all the models you guys bought, all the books, everything, it's discontinued now. Because then you're going to leave a small portion of the fan base completely pissed.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, GW just do better. Next question.
This one is by Four Hedges Family. Would orc bacon just take, like, fried mushrooms?
Like portobello mushrooms, yeah, which is a replacement to meat most of the time for vegetarians. So, yeah.
Yeah, because orcs are not animals and they're not
plants.
They're like a fungus. So, yeah, mushrooms are a fungus.
Yep. This next question comes from Steve Wells. What dog breed exemplifies each Primarch and why?
So Ferrus Manus. What's the most wolf-like dog?
Like a Malamute or whatever?
Sure.
Yeah. And then I think with Rogaldorn, a golden retriever.
Yeah. I was gonna say maybe Sanguinius would be golden retriever, because everybody likes golden retrievers.
Sanguinius would be a what is the golden retriever poodle mix? A golden
doodle.
I think it would be a golden doodle.
I'm trying to think of like a Chihuahua. What would be that?
There's no Mexican Primarchs. It would be one of the lost Primarchs.
A pit bull for Angron.
Yeah, for sure.
Vulcan, a Mastiff.
I could see that because it's a bigger one.
It's a
or a
big-
great. No, a Mastiff is good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Great Danes are tall, but they're not like big.
I think the most difficult ones would be like.
Magnus, like what?
Well, Magnus would be because it's like a cerebral kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So maybe like a really intelligent dog breed, a German Shepherd. Well, I think a German Shepherd would be more Gilliman.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah. So maybe a Border Collie, because like they're very about their work.
Sure.
Yeah.
I
I was gonna say Ferris Manus and the Perturabo. Those would be really hard. So maybe a Chihuahua on a wheelchair.
Yeah, I think that could make sense. Horus.
A dog that always like ends up just biting you and betrays you. That's tough. I heard that huskies are really like a lot. I owned a husky, and yes, it was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it just had too much energy. It never bit me though, because it was mine. But.
Yeah, we'll go with that. Yeah, because he also has like a wolf pelt on him.
Oh yeah.
And
And then who are we missing?
Conrad
Corax?
Corvus Corax.
There's a dog breed in Mexico called a Choloscuincle or whatever, which is just like the Cholo dogs, which is like a dark, hairless Mexican dog that's not like tiny, it's like medium size.
Mm-hmm.
That would be probably Corvus Corax. No. Who's the Night Lords?
Conrad Kurz.
Yeah. Kind of evil.
Evil. Yeah. It's hard.
We can make an entire video on this.
Mm-hmm.
Then the last question. What do you got?
Young Who 87 says, "What will happen to Ghazghkull now? Will he find a new rival? Will he forever hunt down Angron, or his Waaagh will be the next big threat after the Hive Fleet?" What are your thoughts?
So the whole point of Ghazghkull is to create the big party, or like Ragnarok, or whatever he calls it, and that is gathering together 7 great WAAAGHs, and then just the big party. That's what it's called. So far he has Armageddon, he has the Octavia sector, and then he should come up with another one. So that's his whole thing. Like, he's not really hunting for anybody. He's just trying to create as much chaos as possible.
Yeah, and Yarick kind of did that for him. It was just a fun cat and mouse game. Now that Yarick's dead, he'll just find another, like, Tom and Jerry type relationship.
I wonder if it's going to be Yarick's daughter.
Oh, no, that was Creed's daughter, Commissar Creed.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Yarick does not have offspring.
Not that I'm aware of, no. Yeah, because it's Ursula Creed.
Yeah. And yeah, those were the questions for today. If you guys have more questions for us, please comment down below. Thank you guys so much for hanging out, and we'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah, of course, it's been the Sound Alchemist here with
Kirsch1.
And we are out.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.